Okay, we want to just bring you some more breaking lines. As I say, it's just going to be one of these shows because there's so many lines coming in to us here at GB News. We're told now that the US Embassy in Kuwait has been struck, it seems, by either missile or drones targeting that facility. Smoke is seen rising from the embassy in Kuwait, with local emergency services now on scene and reports now, warnings really, that the US Embassy in Kuwait, that there is a continuing threat of missile and unmanned aerial vehicle drone attacks over Kuwait itself. The US Embassy is urging people not to come to the embassy and to take cover. It's a similar situation in so many areas now that are in the line of fire of Iran's drones and missiles. Iran says it's targeting all these neighbouring countries because of the fact that they play host to US military bases.
Yeah, reports as well that there is smoke now rising from the US Embassy in Kuwait City. We will try and get some pictures of this for you and share them on GB News Breakfast as soon as we've got them.
I just want to bring you a line from the regime spokesman, Ali Larjani, of course, the Secretary of the Supreme National Security Council in Iran, saying Trump's wishful thinking has dragged the whole region into an unnecessary war. And now he's rightly worried about more American casualties. It is indeed very sad that he's sacrificing American treasure and blood to advance Netanyahu's illegitimate expansionist ambitions. Well, you know, typical Iranian rhetoric and bellicose language is always used by the regime. But that issue, that point he's making there about a wider war, it's absolutely clear from what we're seeing, Robert. They are now intent on dragging other states in the region into a wider Middle East war with all of the absolute potential for death and destruction that will bring.
I think Larijani is a key figure. He may turn out to be the key figure because he's doing the talking. He's extremely articulate. He was very engaging back along when he was the Speaker of the House, and everybody said, is this the acceptable face? At one point, he has been in charge of the terrible crackdown, by the way, on the protesters. I think he's playing a game, and it's a very important game that we have to watch him and what his offside of the foreign minister, Araichi, is doing and saying. But the threat of a wider war, as Mark says, is very, very grave indeed. And I think that the British posture will have to change. We may even have to be talking about reinforcing our forces, particularly in Akrotiri, but also possibly in Qatar, for their own protection.
Robert, a breaking line on Reuters. This is from the US Embassy in Bahrain. They are saying that terrorist groups and those inspired by such organisations are intent on attacking US citizens abroad. That's in the last few minutes from the US Embassy in Bahrain. Do we have the pictures that we can bring up from Bahrain, where we know there are 300 British personnel currently stationed? And we did hear this morning that one person was dead in that drone strike.
Yeah, we brought you those images a little earlier, two images of smoke billowing over Bahrain after fresh strikes that took place on the port facility there. And of course, the real concern there is, of course, it's home to the US Fifth Fleet. It's their headquarters, but it's a joint naval base shared by the Royal Navy and other military personnel. According to the defence, and you're looking at those really dramatic images now of what is clearly a significant blaze down in the port facility in Bahrain. John Healey said just yesterday that the strike on Saturday landed within a few metres of where some of those 300 British military personnel are being stationed.
Well, let's bring in now former Royal Marine who served in Bahrain, James Glancy, joins us live in the studio. James, what's it like for you seeing these images on the screens now of smoke billowing above Bahrain?
It's expected. Iran was always going to respond with asymmetric warfare because its command and control structures were immediately taken out within the first 24 hours of the operation. Now, obviously, we hope that no one's been injured, but we've got to expect there to be casualties over the next 30 days. Donald Trump specifically said this is at least a month-long campaign, so that I expect there will be at some point British civilian casualties and potentially military casualties.
And in terms of RAF Akrotiri, we're looking at those images now, not just one, but two drones. We've also had confirmation that Hezbollah, that proxy group, terrorist group aligned to Iran, based in southern Lebanon predominantly, has now entered the war. Israel has been bombing Hezbollah targets in southern Lebanon. Do we think, James, that the drones that will have attacked Akrotiri last night will have come from southern Lebanon, which is, of course, much closer to Cyprus? They're unlikely to have transited several countries from Iran to reach Cyprus.
Look, I don't want to speculate on that because ultimately these Shahed drones have ranges of around 600 kilometres. So, I mean, it's more likely that they came there. We just don't know. They have small warheads, but the problem is after decades of defence cuts across Britain's armed forces, we now concentrate a lot of our expensive equipment in single bases, which means they're much more vulnerable to strikes. And we don't yet have the anti-drone capability that you need for this type of conflict. Meanwhile, the Iranians have been preparing. They've dispersed their forces. They've embraced drone technology. We've seen them supporting Russia against Ukraine with these Shahed drones. So we're now in a predicament where the Iranians are actually ahead of us in drone technology, ahead of Britain. We're completely really reliant on what the US and Israel does.
Well, if we combine that with the rhetoric of the Prime Minister last night, very careful, very legal language of talking about specific limited defensive action and allowing the US to use UK bases, how do you think that is making our boys and girls feel in military bases in the Gulf and in Cyprus?
Well, from my experience, I would say that you'd have wanted to be there from the beginning alongside America and Israel, and it'd be very frustrating not to have engaged in the campaign initially. Keir Starmer made the wrong decision not allowing the USA to use Diego Garcia and Akrotiri to strike Iran, and that will have done huge damage to Britain's relationship with America. We used to talk of the special relationship. That is all but gone under Labour, and it will put the Chagos deal probably will be killed as a result of it. But look, this campaign has been done really as a joint operation between Israel and America. Britain's been completely kept out of it. We are almost totally irrelevant under Keir Starmer and Labour on the world stage. And what I would say, that statement he gave last night, he has essentially outsourced Britain's foreign policy to Germany and France and human rights lawyers. Lord Hermer seems to be calling the shots of what we can and can't do. That is unprecedented in British history.